So let's go ahead and start with a quick look at our agenda. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Just a sec. All right, there we go. All right, here we go. For folks who have joined this call in the past, you'll notice that we have flipped the script this time. We're going to go ahead and start with our AMA, our Ask Me Anything, and we're going to do a deep dive into one of our XIPs today, and then we'll follow up with some updates from our various areas. So let's go ahead and dive in and start with Scott and Eleanor, who will lead a discussion about XIP-31.
Cool, great, thanks, Jiha. Yeah, I can be pretty brief about what we're building. The message history is a mechanism essentially to take your messages and securely transport them to yourself. Now, where and why would you want to do that? If you have a new app, you want your messages to come with you, so you need a way to get your app for your messages, your full message history from the old app into the new app. So you want to be able to take your messages with you. If you have the same app, but you've got a new device, so in the world where people go about and you might lose something, if you want to take your messages and get them on the new device, or let's say you have a new app on a new device and you want to pull in your message history from there, the way that the messages are encrypted and sent across the network means that we need to have a different way than was the case in V2, where you use the same encryption key to basically have the network act as a storage mechanism as well. So with V3 and MLS groups, the way that we need to have messages stored and retrieved means that we need to have some other means to be able to get your messages from A to B. So the work to do that is detailed mostly in the diagrams in XIP-31 that I encourage anyone to go read and have a look through. The current status of it is that it's currently actively under development. I can't give an exact date when it'll be ready, but it is more than halfway done. It will be ready certainly by or in June. Hard ask for me to put on myself to have be the case. If you'd like to have a look, so in order to transport messages from either app A to app B or app A to device B, there needs to be some intermediate storage mechanism that we're considering. We were considering different ways of implementing this, and certainly a real-time syncing mechanism where it would just continuously be streaming all of your messages all the time to the new device. If you had multiple devices, as you might be familiar in some messaging apps, that's technically very complex and has a huge burden for other reasons. So in the interest of expediency to market, we've chosen a way that essentially acts more like a backup or an importing. And so it's essentially like a one-shot. If you're familiar, when you create, when you set up a new MacBook to have your import your history and your messages and your documents, you just press a button, and if you provided that you've sent it from somewhere, then you just have it available to you. So we'd like to make the experience as easy and as seamless as possible, while also providing the same security guarantees around the encryption and the non-leakage of your messages. So in order to facilitate that, long story short, there's a message history server that acts as a storage place, really just a dumb file server that you can put your message bundles to, and your other device will securely communicate with the other device as long as you have the same installation IDs, to request and then respond with the location and the signature for that message bundle, and it should stream across. And so you're encouraged to take a look at the message history server. XMTP, as I understand it, we will be hosting a instance of this as a benefit for the community. We also, any integrator is more than welcome to take that code base and run their own if you'd like to support your own style of message backup history. Please, if you have any questions about any of it or how the mechanisms work, I'll be adding more documentation and diagramming as it gets closer to completion about how it practically works, but the README on the front page should give you a good indication of how it mechanically works. And once it's into the code base and into the SDKs, we'll also have some documentation that walks through how to make the user experience great. But to speak more about the user experience, I'll hand it over to Eleanor, who can speak more to that. So.
Wonderful. Thanks, Scott. So I'll spend a few minutes talking through how this will work in terms of a UX perspective for the end user, and then we can open it up to questions or feedback for either Scott or myself. So when we started talking about the potential UX of this change, we actually conducted a concept test with end users last year. And just a little context on me for those I don't know. I'm a product manager at XMTP, but I spent the first year or so as a UX researcher. So we conducted a UX research study. And the goal of this study was to understand what were the most usable and effective flows and flows that made the most sense for users who wanted to download their message history in a second installation of an XMTP client app. So as you can see on the screen, these are actually 3 different options that we presented to end users in this study. So these are not a continuous flow. These are 3 distinct options of how a user might download their message history. And the reason why a client app would need to design something like this, it doesn't need to look exactly like this, but these are just some ideas, is because the user needs to take an action to initiate the foregrounding of the original app in order to download their message history. So for everyone here who has hopefully used XMTP before, in our current iteration, as Scott described, message history is automatically downloaded when you open a new XMTP app. What is going to change is that for all of the security reasons that Scott alluded to, the user will actually now need to take an action to download their message history. And so we concept tested a couple different actions that they could take. I can share more details about the results. I'll publish the research and link to it after this call. But there were mixed responses to what people preferred. I would say overall, folks were more inclined towards the first 2 options that are very Web 2 oriented. There's a lot of familiar mental models around, let me link my Bluetooth to my car. So let me look at that number and say, great, this is the right car. Or, hey, let me log into my Netflix account on my television. Let me confirm it on my phone. No one was particularly excited about the wallet signature, which shouldn't be a surprise to a lot of us that work in Web3. So to bring it all back, the goal of this was to really just understand the user experience that would be required of client apps to implement, and what end users were most excited about or preferred in order to foreground the original app so that they could effectively download their message history. So I'll pause and hand it back to Jeha. I don't know if this is a moment where we want to just open the floor for any questions about this for either Scott or myself.
Yeah, that would be great, Eleanor. Yeah, this is really just meant to be, we've introduced it. We want to do as deep a dive as folks on the call want to have. And we have all of the engineers on the team to answer any questions you might have. Any thoughts? And if folks need any further background on anything leading up to this, feel free to ask about that too. It's a safe space.
Hey everyone. I have a quick question. I'm sorry I was a little bit late to the very beginning of the call, so it might have already been answered. But in terms of technical implementation for clients, will this change have consequences on work that we have to do on our side, or will it be part of the SDK as a native component that is sort of like XMTP branded rather than client branded?
There are implications as consider you an integrator. So to build the app to have the UX flow to kick off the message history syncing, but mechanically it can happen as part of the libxmtp library with extensions into the SDKs. And so that's being worked in right now.
Okay. And in terms of deadlines and timeline, again, maybe it was already mentioned, but do you have any hints on compared to the other changes that are going to happen in the protocol in the next few months?
Within the next month, for sure. I can confidently say that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Scott, somebody has to run the server, correct?
Correct. We will be hosting the server. If you read the front of the README, to have temporal, secure, non-guessable file to temporarily store it. Only the bundle only needs to exist so long as someone can pick it up and pull it across. So we can have expiry dates on that. If someone wanted to set their own expiration for how long they want to retain them, then that's upon them to want to set those rules. But yeah, I left it as an open option to say here's a reference implementation that we will be serving. So you could just use ours. However, you're free to use your own, and if you want to use this library, go for it. It's pretty straightforward and simple. If you want to just design something that satisfies essentially a pretty simple spec, it's post a blob of data to a file, encrypted, and then pull it down. There's a little more to it, but effectively, it's I want to put it there to pull it down.
Okay. And is there a risk of sort of conflict? Let's say I have two separate, maybe this case doesn't exist, but like I have two existing separate clients with the same XID with a different message history because I don't know, like I didn't share the storage between both. Then I connect to a third account. Again, it's a little bit far-fetched, but like I connect to a third account. How does the history of messages work if I already have two separate ones, or maybe it's just not possible?
Yeah, that we have considered that, although I'm not sure exactly how it's going to play out in the end, and I'll happily speak with you a little bit more in detail when I can give you a better answer than I can right now. However, provided that you have all of the installation IDs are shared, whoever responds to it. So if you have, like if you want to sync from whichever device, it necessarily propagates to all of your other devices to say that any one of which could respond. And we're having it now, which the first device app you're responding with, it will be sent up from that device.
And so the content of the other storages will be deleted or not considered, or is there a risk of like losing messages? To be clear,
won't be deleted, so there's no risk of loss of messages from that. But you are correct to say that they wouldn't be considered in that case.
Okay, clear. Thank you. I don't want to take the whole attention of the call, so thank you very much. We might have to like go a little deep further in terms of async. Thank you very much.
Sure. Yes, sure.
Yeah. Any other questions? Otherwise, we can dive deeper with Paul.
If anyone has questions that they're not comfortable asking right now, you can also ask in the discourse as well on the XIP.
Oh, that's a great point, Scott. That's a great point. Yeah, you can find a link to that in the chat. It's XIP-31 in the chat we have running. Right.
I'll go with the very last question, as it seems like there are no other questions. One thing that happens and that we actually already see for users is that sometimes they are not very aware of the fact that they have an XMTP account. So they see that they have, for example, messaging on Coinbase Wallet or this sort of thing, and you have to be sort of a power user in order to know that it's linked to a protocol that is XMTP and that these accounts and this inbox is portable. So let's say tomorrow I use this same account on another client. Will it be sort of automatic that this client knows that there is already storage somewhere and that it has to prompt the user to say, I don't know, like with some, pedagogy there saying like, you have to check out your other client in order to retrieve this storage? Do you know if the new client will be aware in order to prompt the user to do something that is good for actually their own experience?
We had envisioned that this would be a on initial installation of the new app or new app on a new device, that as the like initialization flow of sorts, to say, do you want to create a fresh new instance, at which point you're presumptively knowing that you're starting from a clean slate, or do you have an existing message history that you'd like to sync from? If so, click yes.
Okay, so the new client will be aware of the fact that there is already an installation key with the storage that they can actually retrieve the messages from, if the user wants.
If you're deciding to initiate the new app with that known installation ID.
Okay, clear. That makes sense. And just to be 100% sure, the conversations exist anyway, right? Like I have a list of conversations anyway. The messages within these conversations are the ones that can be not shared. But the fact that I have a conversation, I'm part of a group, for example, is still there, even if I do not migrate the storage, right?
Sure. Yeah, those messages exist. Well, one for primarily on the network, but then decrypted and stored locally onto whichever app you originally viewed them on.
Yeah. But to be clear, like I have like 5 conversations on Coinbase Wallet, let's say, and I also use this inbox on Converse. Even if I do not want to share the storage, I can always see the conversations that are empty on Converse, right?
Frankly, I'm not sure if I fully understood your question, but there's no risk of loss of your conversations. Once you've been able to view them on the app, you will always be able to have seen them. I'm not sure I understood your question.
If there is a new message, okay, and then I will stop there with the question. Sorry about it. But like I'm on Coinbase Wallet with an account. I connect to Converse with this same account that has an history of both, let's say, 5 conversations with 10 messages each on Coinbase Wallet. I arrive on Converse, but I say I do not want to share the history of messages. If there is a new message in one of these conversations afterwards, does it appear on Converse, or are the conversations themselves not shared? The conversation IDs not shared with the client.
Gotcha. Yeah, new conversations will be sent to whichever the new device you have. It's just a matter of have you pulled in your previous history.
But the new conversations will be, but will new messages within existing conversations be shared?
Yeah, so I can answer this. So within every conversation, every participant will check that the installation list is up to date on an interval before sending a message. So new messages on existing conversations should arrive on new installations, because that new installation will be added by existing members.
Okay, clear. Perfect, thank you.
Great. Thank you for those questions, Paul. All right. And we have a question in the chat. Is the history server still decentralized or centralized?
we are hosting one, it is centralized in that respect. The messages are fully encrypted, so to us it's just a byte stream. And again, as an open source repo for hosting it, you don't have to use ours. You're freely welcome to implement and host your own and use that repo as inspiration or directly implement it. That's why we've done it that way.
Thank you, Scott. All right, and again, I'll just go ahead and put a link to the XIP again, where absolutely please continue the discussion async there. And maybe what we can do now is provide updates in other areas. All right, here we go. Let's go ahead and engineering updates from Brian.
Hello. Yep. Okay. So it's been a little while since our last call. There's a lot to talk about. Big things to mention since our last call is that moving group chat into prod is progressing very, very well. So well, in fact, that we've got a head start on migrating one-to-one chat to MLS. More on that coming later in this call. Group chat support for web and JavaScript platforms is also progressing. We have recently decided to focus our initial work on compatibility with Node.js. We still plan to have wider JavaScript compatibility, but we wanted to start with Node because we thought that would be the biggest bang for the greatest number of community members, and then build from there. Update on universally ID. Wow, sorry, coffee wearing off. An update on the universal ID work we talked about in previous calls is that it's mostly complete and being integrated into our SDKs. More on that is also coming soon. And thus, next slide, Jeha. The biggest thing we wanted to talk about in the coming up section was that we will be doing a wipe of the dev network database soon. Oh no, Naomi's shaking her head. This has changed in the last 24 hours. I will pause.
Just the group chat dev. So experimenting with group chat, will this affect you?
Right. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Glad we clarified that. Sorry, I missed it in Slack yesterday. So group chat database will be wiped soon, if not this week, in the next couple of weeks. Not something to be alarmed about, but we did want to provide prior notice. And this is all on the road towards getting you the ability to build on and develop these features yourselves. Also, this was a good moment to remind folks that while we're in this pre-release phase, you probably want to be using test wallets and addresses. Shout out to the dev a couple weeks back that let us know they had accidentally locked their main smart wallet contract out of their unstoppable domain out of the network until we do this database wipe. They'll be fine then. But just in the meantime, wanted to say, yeah, test this stuff with the side wallet, not your main wallet. Cool. All right. That's me.
Right. Excellent. Thank you, Brian. And to follow up on one-to-one direct message with MLS, Naomi, would you like to tell us a bit more?
So we actually had some great questions in the chat, kind of about V2 messages and the backward compatibility. So as we've talked a lot about, is we have this new MLS-backed messaging system, which is what group chat is backed with, and we still have V2 for one-to-one messaging. So we're going to try to move one-to-one messaging also backed by MLS, and this is kind of one of our next big work streams. During this period of time when we don't have one-to-one in MLS, there will be V2 and V3 messages kind of happening, and clients that support group chat will have kind of a mixed experience. Once we bring one-to-one also into MLS, there will be a period of time where we're going to be doing dual sending, which means that people who support V3 will be sending both a V2 and a V3 message for a period of time to support people who only are supporting V2. So this will allow for V2 and V3 messages to be received across clients who only support one or the other. So we have a tracking issue right now, kind of tracking this work if you're curious. The message history is a part of this, and you can kind of check in on the other items here. if you're curious about kind of our plan for one-to-one, backed by MLS, kind of our move away from V2. And this means, hopefully, I mean, everybody will be notified, but hopefully sometime at the end of next year or beginning of next year, we'll kind of sunset V2 and everything will be on V3.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Any questions for Naomi? Any more questions? All right. And I imagine that if you have any questions, you can go ahead and go to the tracking issue and leave a comment. Async. Fantastic. All right. And so now let's go ahead and talk about some announcements, ecosystem news, DevRel updates from Fabri.
Hey. Yeah, so we are participating on the Onchain Summer Buildathon. And yeah, we're really excited about partnering up with Coinbase. And we have 3 bounties that we're going to introduce these coming days. And on the next page, we can see what these bounties are all about. Building bots, using ENS for building one-on-one bots. So you can think about using Base, right? Everything needs to be built on top of Base. So building bots, for example, for minting unique NFTs, apparel, clothing, sports games for sports fan, betting, playing games inside chat. So we are proposing these bounties that is going to give you like the one-on-one experience using ENS, talking to maybe an automated bot, and this bot also using frames and interacting with frames through Coinbase and Base. So yeah, announcement coming soon, and yeah, that's from me.
Thanks so much, Fabri. Any questions about these bounties? All right. Well, more to come, I'm sure. All right. And last on deck, we have just an update about some of our XIPs in progress. And I'll just give a brief overview. XMTP improvement proposals are XIPs, are XMTP's way for the community to propose improvements to XMTP. And of course, anyone can propose one and anyone can provide feedback. You can learn more. When we share this deck, you can go ahead and click that link and learn more about how to propose one, the process involved. And so here are some XIPs for which there are notable updates. I think I won't go through every single one, but one notable one is XIP-31. On-chain transaction reference content type is in last call status. So on May 28th, unless there are normative changes requested, it will move into final status. So if you have a vested interest in that XIP and haven't taken a look yet, please go ahead. It'll move into final status on May 28th. And I think, that is the content we have prepared for today, but we do have about 10 more minutes if we want to dive back into any of the content we've discussed, if any thoughts or questions have come to mind since. Or if any open topics, not related to what we've talked about today. Anyone have a question or feedback they'd like to share in general?
Well, maybe one thing that would be interesting to go back on is what you mentioned about the bounties, Fabri. I would say that it's maybe something that we can deep dive later, but I feel like, at least on our side, for Converse, but also for other clients, it would be interesting to try and get defined deadlines on our side, at least, in order to integrate as many features as possible for developers, as many tools as possible. I'm thinking about transactional frames, maybe making frames better for any use case that we could think of, etc., etc. So yeah, I would love to think with you and anyone who would be relevant in the team in order to try and define deadlines so that like we do not miss something.
Yeah, sure. That would be great, Paul. And yeah, I think like some tweaks here and there for frames and transactions for sure could be like cool features to integrate to Converse. So yeah, anytime.
Okay. Let's think on that. We are planning for the next releases, so I think it's important indeed.
Okay.
Great. Thank you for that. Any other thoughts, folks? Any wild ideas?
It's not a wild idea. It's a suggestion for this course. I take full responsibility for that, but I do not check quite often the activity that happens on XMTP in terms of numbers. Like new XIDs, retained users, with the clear bias of like people spamming the network, etc. But if we can, I don't know if there is an internal reporting on that on the XMTP side. But I think for the matter of clarity for the whole ecosystem and trying to have like transparency on all of this, that would be interesting. Maybe as part of these calls to have that.
I love that. And you're right, I think in tune with Shane and Saul. I think Shane had suggested that we have a segment for sharing analytics data about the network. And we have a Dune dashboard running, and we're just like, I think, putting it through the test, validating. And I think Saul will come on in a future call to walk us through it, and then we can make it a regular part of the call to walk through the data. But we'll have one call where we can do a deep dive and talk through each data point to explain a little bit more about it, and then we'll give a regular update. Does that sound like what you're looking for?
Yes, and I again, full responsibility on me, but I didn't even know that there was a Dune dashboard that I just actually checked, and it seems very interesting.
Yeah. I think we haven't fully publicized it because we're still validating and putting finishing touches on it, making sure it is fully accurate. So I think that's why we've been scheduling it for a future call. We just want to make sure it's chef's kiss before we fully publicize.
I understand.
Yeah, great. All right. I do have a question for folks on the call. Maybe we can do it via survey, but what about the time of day for this call? Any hardship being caused by it being at 10 a.m. Pacific? And maybe I can do it async too, but just wanted to see if there was any outrage. Probably folks for whom it's a problem aren't on the call. So anyway, all right. Well, last call for any topics for today. Great. All right. And I see some questions in the chat. Okay, I see. All right. Well, I think we can call it a wrap today. And again, please go ahead.
So, hello, and thank you for all the stories. I struggled with the huddle for the first time, half the meeting, so didn't see everything. I suppose one publishes a bot. Which exactly well-known like wallets and other trusted applications, can users reach the bot? As far as I know, like at this very moment, it's Coinbase wallet. And yes, it is always listed on XMTP page. I just didn't see it for maybe a few weeks. I mean, suppose you develop a bot and you connect Telegram. Well, you know where your users are. And XMTP is like multi-platform, but what is the central thing you will think of as a developer? My users are Coinbase wallet users. What else? It is not a very technical question, so, but it's the one I have.
Yeah. Any thoughts from folks?
I feel like Paul should jump in here. Like, so I think the client apps that are, I'm just going to speak extemporaneously for myself. The client apps that are most aggressive about adopting new stuff that we're building into a network has been Converse. They're an iOS app. Oh, well then I won't. Is my mic working now?
Yes.
Cool.
Better.
I was going to say that speaking only for myself, in my experience as an XMTP employee, the client apps that have been most aggressive about adopting new features as we build them into the network have been Coinbase Wallet, Converse, and there's an iOS app called Family, which I think is also yeah. I think those are the top three that I would think of first in answer, if I'm understanding your question correctly.
Yes, you did. Converse, then Connect Wallet, and what about Family?
Family is a wallet app for
You
iOS.
said like one more app. Is it just named Family or something else?
Family.app. Yep.
Got it. Thank you so much.
No, and I'm not sure if you sorry if this is a silly question, but have you seen the homepage of xmtp.org? We have a list of many apps that are built with XMTP, but it doesn't really necessarily reflect, number of users, for example. But maybe you can, if you haven't already, you might want to take a look there and get a feel.
Looking at it now, last time I did, I couldn't install Converse, and I'll just try again. Yeah, right. These three are basically listed on top. Anyway, thanks.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you for that question. A fresh question. Fresh perspective. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for a lively call and great discussion about XIP-31 and the future of one-to-one messaging with MLS and future bounties Onchain Summer. Okay. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.